What's up, guys? This is Minister Kid, and you are listening to Menacing Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about Jake Paul knockout on Tyron Woodley. Did y'all see that KO punch in the 6th round by Jake Paul? That was very, very unexpected. First of all, the fight sucked. Second of all, that was the only good thing in the entire fight was that knockout. Props to Jake Paul for getting the power punch knockout. Tyron should never drop that hand. That's the problem with a lot of people. And no, I'm not talking about dropping hand. I'm talking about they underestimate Jake Paul too much. He's a great amateur boxer. He's 5-0. And he's a good power puncher. That what he possesses is a power. Is power in his punches. Most of his fights, like the majority of his fights, he ended it in a knockout. 4 out of 5 of his fights was via knockout. The first fight that he had with Tyron Woodley, it went to decision. Now Tyron got knocked out. But the problem I have with Jake Paul is that he's not fighting boxers. Jake. Boxing is boxing other boxers, not YouTubers, not other celebrities, not retired UFC fighters, or not UFC fighters that have no type of experience as a boxer. Jake. My problem with Jake Paul is he's fighting UFC fighters. He's calling out UFC fighters and not fighting boxers. If you want to fight in the UFC, just get Dana White to sign you a contract. And you get yourself a training camp and fight the UFC fighters. Otherwise, stop calling out UFC fighters. I feel like the UFC fighters shouldn't be taking no more fights from Jake Paul because every time they take a fight, they lose. And it's pointless. UFC fighters are supposed to fight UFC fighters. Boxers are supposed to fight boxers. Mind you, ain't no UFC fighter ever jumped in a boxing ring until Conor McGregor did it. I'm just putting that out there. But now since Jake Paul is a boxer and he's calling out all these UFC fighters, now they want a paycheck? Seriously? Y'all seriously gonna embarrass yourself by losing to Jake Paul for money? Tyron Woodley could have left that alone. You know who I think could beat Jake Paul as a UFC fighter? Probably Cody Garbrandt, because he has a background in boxing. Cody Garbrandt could probably knock Jake Paul out. If y'all don't know him, he's a former bantamweight champion. UFC bantamweight champion. He used to be undefeated in the UFC. I think his record 13-3 or something like this. It's around that. But I know he could probably beat Jake Paul. Because Cody Garbrandt, he possesses a lot of power in his punches as well. And he's fast. And young. He's like 28 years old. Jake Paul is like 24, 25. I would love to see that happen. Jake Paul versus Cody Garbrandt. But I don't think it'll ever happen. Because Cody Garbrandt not going to fight some amateur boxer. Not saying that Jake Paul sucked, but Jake Paul proved himself a little bit, but not enough. Yeah, he knocked out NBA players and retired UFC fighters and UFC fighters. He hasn't fought a boxer yet. How did you have 5 fights in your entire career and has not faced a boxer yet? Wow. And then he tries to compare himself to Muhammad Ali. Stop it. You're making a fool out of yourself. Like Michael Bisping said. Stop it. You're making a fool out of yourself. You are nowhere near Muhammad Ali. That's cool if you want to get there. But you are nowhere near Muhammad Ali. You ain't even on Anthony Joshua level. Like, come on now. But like I said, I gotta give credit where credit is due. He said what he was gonna do. He knocked out Tyron Woodley. But he hasn't knocked out a boxer yet. He hasn't faced a boxer yet. He's calling out these UFC fighters. Sure, he did say he wanted to fight Canelo Alvarez. But you're not gonna get to Canelo fighting UFC fighters. If you want to fight in the UFC, just say it, Jake. Like, are you fighting UFC fighters because you think there'll be an easier fight than actual boxers? Because most UFC fighters don't have, a background in boxing? Because in UFC, they always switch up their stances? Is that why you face UFC fighters? Because you think UFC fighters are an easier fight than actual boxers? To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know why Jake calls out UFC fighters. I don't. Like, instead of him calling out Nate Diaz and Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal and Conor McGregor, he should be fighting Tommy Fury in March. He should be looking at boxers to fight in 2022. Because he's talking about, I'm proving my haters wrong. No, you're just adding to your haters. You're not proving nobody wrong. You just proven that you haven't faced a boxer yet. Yeah, you fought a UFC fighter, but they're not boxers, Jake. I would be so happy if he fight at least one boxer next year. One boxer. I don't care if they got 15 losses and 0 wins. At least you fought a boxer. Like, I don't care. Just fight a damn boxer. Thank you for tuning in to Menacing Podcast. You have reached the 10-minute mark. Please go follow me on Instagram and TikTok for exclusive content that I have. I do gaming. I make my own music. I do reaction videos. I do a lot of stuff. And please subscribe to my YouTube gaming channel, Menace_the Kid. That's the same with my TikTok, Menace_the Kid. And my Instagram is Menace_the Kid with 2 D's at the end. If you're now just tuning in, we are listening to Jake Paul. Well, me talking about Jake Paul and him KOing Tyron Woodley on Saturday. And him not fighting actual boxers. To be honest with you, I think this whole celebrity boxing thing should have never even happened. Like, to be honest with you, boxing is getting looked at as a joke now because of Jake Paul. If you want to keep it real, it's getting looked at as a joke because of Jake Paul. Before, boxing used to be this tough sport, just as well as UFC. Now it's becoming a joke. You know, like I still want to know, like, what's up? What's up? Why aren't you fighting boxers? Like, on his Impulsive podcast, his brother should have asked him that. Why aren't you fighting boxers? You're calling out all these UFC fighters. Why aren't you fighting boxers? At least Logan Paul fought an actual boxer. This guy fought fucking Floyd Mayweather and lasted full 10 rounds with him. At least he fought a boxer. You haven't fought nobody, Jake. You think fighting UFC fighters is going to get you closer to winning a championship in boxing? No. I don't even think he in the rankings in boxing. Like, bro, instead of calling out these UFC fighters, your goal in 2022 is to try to climb up the ladder in boxing. Jake Paul had 5 fights and won all of them and think he's the shit when he didn't even fight a boxer yet. And he want to fight Canelo. Yeah, okay. Like, I'm not a Jake Paul hater. You know, I actually like what Jake is doing. I just feel like he needs to really prove himself because he hasn't proven anything besides, yeah, he got knockout power. Yeah, he's a strong guy. Yeah, he can beat UFC fighters in a boxing ring. That's all Jake proved. And that he can sell fights. That's all Jake proved. He didn't prove that he can beat actual boxers. I know you're going to say, oh, well, Tommy Fury pulled out. Still, a boxer could have been the replacement and not Tyron Woodley. Because that fight was ass. That fight sucked. Bunch of hugging. Like, come on now. But thank y'all for listening to Menacing Podcast. This has been Minister Kid talking to you about Jake Paul. Jake Paul, get your shit together because, like I said, get your stuff together, Jake. Okay, bye.